This is a Conrad alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
Oh, for 5 years. 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you live from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, broadcasting via the auditory and visual mediums to my fellow delinquents across the globe. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is October the 28th, 2024. This is episode 471 of Workshop Radio. We're going to dive right into it. I know my guest does not need any introduction, but someone I consider a good friend. How are you, Mr. Willis?
I'm well, man. Dude, your intro is awesome. I've never caught the intro to it.
You know what? So part of that is me. The music and the audio came from my own personal design. And you know our mutual friend, Rebecca from Red Flyer Media?
Yeah.
She 100% did all the video with it. And oh my goodness, what a sweetheart. She has done. Yeah. I've got stinger clips when I do This Week in Prepping. So every Thursday I take a look and I have all these segments and they're like audio transition stingers. Oh my goodness. They're so good. I started with audio. She did all the video behind it. And what an awesome lady she is, man.
Yeah. I heard the Art Bell in there, man. That's awesome.
I love it. It's too much fun. Part of my podcast is an homage to old talk radio. You know, I grew up with the, everywhere you go, whether it was your dad's workshop, I'd go over to my uncle and my grandfather's shop where they would rewire generators, things like that. They always had talk radio on in the background. And it was usually, terrestrial kind of current events, you know. And I grew up with it. It was a soundtrack. And if it wasn't that, it was baseball on. Same thing. Talk radio, baseball in the afternoon. And it was just the soundtrack of life. And we miss that a bit. And so I like some of this slow medium where we sit down and just hash things out.
You know, you could get your show syndicated and broadcast onto AM radio. Glenn Tate does that with Prepping 2.0. It actually broadcasts onto, I think it's on like 60 radio stations or something.
That is one of my long-term goals, is to get my Thursday show. So, of course, the Thursday show will have to be PG at the most, right? For simple reasons, and I'm cool with that. But that is one of my long-term goals, is to get it on terrestrial radio. I would love to, for sure.
I'll bet those guys are really looking, for content now that, nobody's really doing it. I bet it wouldn't be that hard for you to do that.
I don't think so. I don't know if you know Brad from 5 Times August. We've talked a bit about him.
The band?
So he's the band. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a good friend of mine, and he had some connections, and I followed up with him and never really got any traction. So I got to circle back with him and a few other guys, because I think I have enough connections out there that at some point I could make it work for sure.
Awesome.
So how you been, John?
I'm great.
What do you got there for is that a new shirt?
I spread missing information.
So I'm going to shout out. This is my all-time favorite. It's still, I wear this, tread on those who tread on you. I was standing in line at a coffee shop in Nova Scotia this summer. Dude taps me on the shoulder. He's like, I love your shirt. Almost like he was, a little bit nervous to say it. I'm like, dude, why do you think I wear it? Because I told him, I'm like, I got this awesome buddy down in Tennessee who prints these up. And when this one showed up, it's been my go-to. I wear it more than any of the other ones, man.
We've run that 3 times, and the last time we ran it back to back 2 weeks in a row, they just kept selling out. So we'll do it again. For
what it's worth, do it like if you ever decide to do it in a different pattern or something. I'm sure it'd be awesome. Man, we got some pile of people in here. It's good to see everybody. I'm not even going to try to say hello to everybody, but
hey, if you guys listening, if you would say, if you're coming from my channel or if you're coming from Tim's channel, how did you hear about this broadcast today? And if you're on my channel and you're not following Tim's channel, let us know that also, and make sure you do. He's got great content.
Appreciate it, brother. I don't know how, let's talk about this for a minute. I love the extended community. So more than one occasion, actually, I was laying in bed at my camp in Tennessee, and I get a message from a dude in Calgary. And he's like, hey, John Willis just turned me on to you. And I'm like, so this is how it works, right? You're in Tennessee. You talk to somebody in Calgary, which is home for me. I'm in Tennessee. And then we all make these connections. And I don't know how many folks have come through me based on you. So, for what it's worth, man, I love it. I appreciate it.
Man, every single time some guy says he's in Canada, I'm like, you got to check out my friend Toolman Tim, and you got to check out Ed Hubble at Iridium Group. Every night I say that.
Ed is so stinking switched on, man. I tell you. Yep. And speaking of community, I'm going to throw this out too. So while I was at your event, or when we were at the SOE compound there for SRF recently, I did 15-minute interview with Bear, and just about what he's dealing with in North Carolina. And so I set that as a premiere on my channel. And I mean, I knew Bear had some reach. I had no idea what kind of reach I was going to get. That video, so just to put it into perspective, if I do an interview with somebody, the live stream replay, 300 to 400 views is usually where I'll end up with a lot of them. If I hit really big, it'll keep going, a little bit. Bear's is at 14,000 views in 2 weeks. And the amount of folks, I bet you that video brought in, I'm probably sitting at about 400 new subscribers because of Bear. And that, I mean, because of his content and his reach. And I appreciate that. And that's what I love doing, man.
Did you tag Bear in that video?
I did. And I'm pretty sure he reciprocated on the back end, right?
Yep. He'll usually share it on his other channels, and you'll get a lot of traction out of that.
And I got to meet his really cool IT guy. We chatted for a bit, and he's going to send me over the guy that does the video. I can't remember his name right now, which, big black dude. Do you know who I mean?
Yeah, Dudley.
Yeah. I love it. What an awesome dude, man. I tell you.
Yep. Yeah. Even chatted. His hand will swallow even your hand.
Right.
That dude's got some bear paws, man.
And if you've ever met me, man, I'm a gentle giant, but I'm a bit of an imposing force. And this dude, I'm like, well, hello there, big dude.
Yeah, my hand still hurts. Yep.
What do we got? Martin's family says, I got it from both. We're on Tim's channel watching from South Manitoba. No snow yet. So
perfect.
And Gunslinger just subbed. So I picked up a few news stories this week. I do a thing on my show called Stranger Than Fiction, where I take a look at some of the crazy news stories and we chat about it. The one that's grabbed me this week, and I try not, I'm a big fan of not worrying about the things that I can't handle, right? Mm-hmm. But what do you think about North Korea over in the Ukraine right now? That was the one. I've got a bunch, but that's the one that's been bugging me. And I'm like, I want to talk to John about it. What do you think?
Well, who's telling us? Where are we hearing it from, right? We're hearing it from our mainstream media. Are we seeing it broadcast on any other channels outside of the United States?
So I have seen it on Reddit for 2 weeks coming up. People, boots on the ground folks saying, hey, this is happening. And then finally, the U.S. military or the U.S. news and the politicians said, guess what? There's boots on the ground. And as of this morning, they say not just there for training, there to be involved in the actual conflict.
So I've heard 3,000 and I've heard 100,000. I've also heard that there's already, they're massively already running away and kind of just fleeing to the wind, dropping their gear and trying to get out, right? You've just taken people who are not allowed to leave their country and put them outside of their country. Now, it's also said that they will kill the next 3 generations if you defect or you try to escape. So there's probably some of that too. Now, where has when's the last time we've seen a little North Korean man or a China man in combat anywhere? I don't think it's a fear. Maybe they are getting their people blooded. Maybe they are sending people out there that they just don't want to feed any longer. I really don't know what to think about it.
And that's kind of that's where I land too, because every time you see another country entering a skirmish, of course, the first thing goes, okay, it's going to go from, basically the equivalent of a civil war to an extended regional war. Nobody wants to use the term world war anymore, right? Because once you do, it's like when you put something out in the ether, it becomes real, So, I mean, it could just be Putin flexing his muscles. And I never thought about what you were saying, but the idea of these folks going there and then just defecting, because no matter what you say, anybody in North Korea wants to be anywhere but North Korea. Well, so I can see that for sure.
Like it does appear that Russia is getting their ass chewed up. Like there has been a turnaround. Like they've already presented their best equipment and their best people. Apparently, we hear a little bit kind of from the Ukrainian side. I know some Russians, but we don't know. I don't get any information back about Russian combat. But if you look at the footage that's out there, it does not look good for the Russians. Not at all. Like they are getting just chewed up. And then as far as, everybody's always worried about China's, I mean, they just sank their aircraft carrier caught on fire. Russia's aircraft carrier caught on fire. The United States Navy helped them with their, most prestigious carrier. I mean, China's carriers still have a ramp on the front of them to launch their aircraft. They had a submarine that is sank. I mean, the United States always has to have that boogeyman to justify and keep us calm about the money being spent. But are they really a concern? I don't know. I mean, they're not. I don't think that they are. You hear that they have the biggest Navy, but I mean, Disney had the biggest Navy next to China and then the United States for a long time. And, when you look at their equipment is nowhere near anything the United States has.
I wonder, for anybody out there that's a movie fan, one of my favorite Christmas movies is Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And for anybody that's ever seen it, they bring out the turkey, they put it on the table, and it's the most beautiful golden looking turkey, and everybody's excited to eat it. And as soon as they cut in, the whole thing just collapses. It turns to steam and dry meat. And I wonder how much of that's going on with especially China, because we've talked about that for a lot of years where, China was the boogeyman. But I wonder, I mean, they're getting to the point where they're running out of able-bodied men. Their infrastructure is starting to crumble. I wonder how much of that is they're trying to put on a show of a beautiful turkey, but as soon as as soon as they get into a conflict, we're going to find out things are a little different.
If you want to see what's really going on in China, there's it's a YouTube channel. It's two South African dudes on motorcycles, and they drive around all these abandoned cities and they talk to people in China in these different provinces and stuff. And it's absolutely crazy. Like China has made they made a 1-to-1 replica of Paris, France, and it's just collapsing. It's all paper mache. They've got all these amusement parks. They've got all these Disneylands around China that are just abandoned, and they're just collapsing, and they're covered in algae and mold. They just do all these projects to keep all these people busy. It's not female Chinese people that they're sending out on the Belt and Road initiatives all through from China, all through Africa and Central America. It's those men, because there are no females from them for that generation when they had that one-child program. And they're sending all those people out to occupy those people and keep them busy so that they do not cause a problem. Chinese generation right now, the people that are like 20 to 25 years old, they've got that let it rot generation. And that's kind of like our generation where we've got these youngsters that are just not showing up to work. And if they do the absolute minimum. Go to any Walmart, you will see employees, you'll see 5 employees standing around literally on their phone. Management isn't even like, hey, put your phone away. That's that quiet quitting. They show up, do the bare minimum to not get fired. And the situation is so bad that you have to tolerate those do nothing people to have employees at all. And I think that's what's happening. I mean, and I think I haven't been to China. I don't know people in China, but I know how things are here. And they're kind of messed up here. Just imagine how amplified they are in a communist society where these kids have grown up now. Everybody has this thing. You talk about our homeless people. Our homeless people are in the top 5% of the income earners in the entire world. So you have people literally in third world countries where water would kill you and I, and they defecate and drink from the same water source. But they all have these phones, and they all know how it is in the United States. So if they can get to the United States and be absolute bottom of the food chain, they're still 100 times better than everywhere else. And that is the deal, man. They know, and they have been poisoned. In some ways, they were better off where they were than being in Western society, but are they really? And that Western society and the TikTok and such has just contaminated them.
Dude, when we're in Tennessee, of course, my wife loves to shop, and that's her thing. She likes to do it. One of our favorite mall to go to is Opry Mills, the Opry Mills Mall, and the one that flooded years ago, and it's really flat. So we've been in there probably 6 times in the last 6 months. Love it.
Downhill. Yep.
Big time. And here's what happens. We go into those like boutique clothing stores because the girls, they're 14. That's what they want. I paid attention, and it was at least 5 stores. We walked in, the girl's doing this on her phone.
Bumping into each other.
Yep. Didn't even look up to say like, hey, can we help you? They were just there. They were a person holding down space until you inconvenience them enough that they'd be willing to ring your order through.
Everywhere.
I had no idea it had gotten that bad. I don't know. I don't even know what the answer is. I'm not sure. I don't know where we go from here.
So Opry Mills is the ghetto mall. It's known to be an outlet mall. It used to be a lot nicer. You want to go to Green Hills Mall. That's where the higher end boutique stuff is. And you have a little more presence of security, and you have just higher end stuff in there. It's a very different experience from Green Hills to Opera Mills.
I'm going to have to ask Becky, because we did go to one kind of upper crust mall, and it might have been Sean Mills was the one who recommended it. And it did have a lot more boutique stores. So I'll definitely will go back there if that's the one. I'll find out, but that makes sense because Curtis and I, my son-in-law, we go down to the Edmonton Oilers. So we got season tickets this year to the hockey game. Mm-hmm. And I always enjoy, that's the city for us here. And for anybody who doesn't know, I'm a Canadian. I'll apologize now and get it out of the way. But no. So we go downtown, and Kurt says to me, like, the dude grew up in inner city, and he has situational awareness. Like it's just him, right? He exudes it because he knew it. And he goes, just be careful. We go around the corner here, you'll see some leaners. And I'm like, leaners?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as soon as we get over there, you got the guys leaning over, they're like zombies, right? And so he just, he'll be like, okay, so when we go down this way, stay out to the outside. He just knows the rules. But here's the thing. It used to be that the 1 or 2 blocks downtown where they built the arena for whatever reason was where all of the homeless were. Well, guess what? It is now spread everywhere. And you wouldn't want to live outdoor here. I mean, minus 40 will kill you quickly. And there are tent cities everywhere in this place. And it's a city of a little over 1 million people. And it has just gone from, you'd have one small area to spread out in the whole city. And it's dangerous, man.
Sounds like you need a flood.
We need something, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a mess. And I don't know where that's going either, but it certainly isn't nearly as enjoyable as it used to be to visit.
Yeah, leaners, man. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Ain't that the truth? All right, I got another one for you. WAPO, Washington Post, Jeff Bezos owned newspaper, failed to back a candidate this year. Did you hear about that at all?
I think that I did.
Okay. I just want your thoughts on it. Yeah.
Knows Kamala is so wrecked that they won't back them, but doesn't like Trump. I think that you have a lot of these people that have done very insidious things to get into the positions of power that they have and the money they have. And I think that they are very scared of Trump. I think that other side is that wounded animal. When you've got the Epstein stuff and the Diddy stuff, and they have so much dirt on all of these people that have done those things. They say sell your soul or eat babies or adrenochrome. I mean, let me tell you, to start with, to qualify what I'm about to say, is that you won't find a conspiracy theory that I don't believe there's some truth in, right? So I think that those things actually happened. And I think that those people know that there is going to be a price for that. And I think that they have to go to that other side in order to, they're hoping like everything possible. They know if Kamala gets in charge, there will not be a United States any longer, if there even is. And if Trump gets in charge, there's going to be some payment for the crimes that have been committed.
So they're kind of hedging their bets a little bit. Do you think that they're
Washington Post? I think that they don't want either one of them. They know that they're done either way.
So what do we got? 8 days until the election. And I'm a Canadian. So people say, oh, it doesn't affect you. Well, it sure as shit does. I promise you it does. Not to the extent of what you guys will be dealing with, but it certainly affects a lot of our foreign policy, and it affects the day-to-day life up here, taxes, everything. So where do we end up when we wake up on Wednesday morning and with the results? Where are we?
Well, I think you go to bed and Trump won just like last time, and you wake up, and if she won, does anybody believe it? I mean, do you believe that Biden even won last time, right? You have all these states, you have these governors removing illegal aliens, literally self-proclaimed illegal aliens from the voter rolls, and you have judges mandating that they be put back on the voter rolls. Those judges were appointed, Obama appointed judges, not Trump appointed judges. It's very smoldering right now. Crimes right now. You hear about crimes. Are those Republican on Democrat crimes? Or vice versa. There's a couple that we know of during the summer of love, right? You had an Antifa guy walk up and shoot somebody else. You had some other dudes supposedly defend themselves from the other side. Is that happening more than we know of, and it's not being reported, right? Because they say crime rates are down. Crime rates aren't down in the Democrat cities. They have just simply not been reported. They've in fact been told not to report them. So are things bad already? What happens when you wake up in the morning and you're told Kamala Harris is the president? How many people? I think people are very, very awake to that right now. I don't know. I think people are also uncomfortable enough that they're not going to tolerate another 4 years of the nonsense. You even have people that were knee deep a couple of years in that nonsense who have now turned sides and are at the Trump rallies and endorsing Trump. I don't know. I'm hopeful that Trump will take office. And I know there's a bunch of people probably in the chat like, oh, you're foolish. And, it doesn't matter who you vote for. I tend to agree with them. But I would also say that they better hope Trump gets office. There's not a single person who can legitimately say their life was not better while Trump was in office. And they'll be like, bump stocks this, bump stocks that. If they're saying that it doesn't matter, they don't make any money. They're not paying taxes anyways. They are literally, well, it's illegal. You shouldn't. Taxes are crime. Taxes are theft. I agree with you 100%. Try not paying them, though. See how that goes for you.
That's where it comes down to. I can say all I want that I don't agree with the law. And I can be a sovereign citizen and decide that I'm going to totally ignore the rules. But when push comes to shove, they're going to send folks after you, and they're going to put you in jail eventually if you don't play at least by the rules.
And as soon as you have a voice spoken out against them, they will use all of that against you.
So up in Canada, we have to have a license in order to have a gun. And that doesn't mean to carry. That means just to own, because we're not allowed to do a whole heck of a lot, especially with our handguns, that sort of thing. So back in February, I send in my renewal, which was about 6 weeks beforehand. I thought this will be great. I'm in Tennessee for 2 months. I get back, no new license waiting for me. I think, what in the world's going on? So I call up the gun place, and they're like, oh, your photo wasn't clear enough. We need a new photo. And I'm like, well, did you send me a reminder or anything? Oh, we think we did. Doesn't matter. So this is late May, early June. I go get a passport quality photo done this time. I send it to him rush post. It shows up. I have proof that it showed up 6 days later. So that was like June. I still didn't have it 2 weeks ago. And we're talking. So I'm in illegal I was in illegal territory at this point, because they give you a 6-month grace period, and I'm past my 6-month grace period. So I call them, and they're like, well, what's going on? They said, well, it's still sitting in your provincial office. No reason, no problems. They haven't reached their standard of care yet. They have so many months to deal with things. And yeah. So I said, well, would it do any good if I called my Alberta gun place? And they said, well, it can't hurt. We can't transfer you because you haven't reached whatever the window was. I don't know how many days it was, but it was like 6 months plus 3 weeks or something. But if you give you your number, you can call. So this had been going on. We're talking 7-8 months at this point. I call them. Within 3 minutes, the lady looks, she goes, oh yeah, I just approved it. They're going to print it. You'll have it in a week. And I got it for no reason other than it just sat on somebody's desk until it reached whatever period of time was acceptable within the government.
Well, it should be if this, then that, right? If you have to have identification, it should be sped up because you already had it. Are there any crimes? They can automate all that. Why is that shit not automated, right? They know right when you owe them some money, that shit's automated. It's because it justifies all that bureaucracy. There's two kinds of people in the world. There's somebody that creates a product or has a service or a skill that people seek out and willingly want to do business with. And then there's bureaucrats. That's those people, right? The Department of Motor Vehicles. Would you ever go to the DMV and pay tax on a vehicle you already bought and paid tax for, and then you have to have registration, and then they got to look at your car and you got to pay to have it inspected to stamp it when it's a new car anyways, right? Would you ever willingly use that service? You would not. And that's kind of those two factions also, right? Between like Republicans and Democrats. Most Democrats, they only hold a job, or all bureaucrats, they hold a job because somebody is scared, and at the force of violence of a gun, you have to use their service, right? If I had an achy tooth or something on Saturday night, I would seek out a dentist and pay him whatever he wanted to fix my problem Sunday morning. Nobody's ever seeked out the DMV willingly and asked them, if you have a problem you need solved at the DMV or a government office, it's because they've created it.
100%. I've got a really good buddy here. He owns the local hardware store, and he made the mistake. Well, not the mistake, but he made the choice many moons ago to lease property on a government-owned lake. And so this is the area here where all the hoity-toity, the really nice cabins are built. The problem is that whatever you want to do, it has to be, it has to be said, okay, it's good based on the powers that be. And nothing ever goes the way you want it. And one time he'd been fighting with him for months and months and months. Finally, he says, I'm going down to the office. And he went down and he gets a hold of the guy, and they're like, how did you know where our office was? He's like, well, I found it. Like they were hiding from him, right?
Yeah, they are.
He went in and he said there was a set of cubicles, 6 on one side, 6 on the other. And this was an approval. It had something, of all things, it had to do with his shed being 2 feet over a line somewhere. It had been there when he bought the property. So he finds the guy that does the work, that does the approval. And he said, you see this? This is where I'm at. I'm seat number 3. It goes to 4, 5, 6, all the way to 12, and then back again. And it has to, each person has 2 weeks to handle it. So he says, can you just approve it? And the guy's in seat number 3. He hollers over to number 12. He goes, this should be good, right? Yeah, no problem. Stamp. Have a nice day.
That's the case, man.
Dude, I'm telling you. What did you do this week, John, to make your life better?
What did I do this week to make my life better? I just removed some frustrations, man.
How'd you do that? You don't have to go too far into it, but whatever you...
Just human beings, man. Just
yeah.
I have a high tolerance to tolerate chaos, and just removing the slightest amount of chaos, you can see everybody else go and just breathe easier, man. That's really it.
That's good. And why is that important to somebody who's, I think most folks that would be coming in here would be, preppers, or at least somebody who wants to make their life better. Why is removing chaos or removing stuff like that better for you?
Well, I think you have to be conscious of it, number one, right? And this thing right here, would we know most of the problems in the world if we weren't told by this any longer, right? We don't watch the news. We don't turn into the 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock news to hear the conflict around the world. And this thing constantly with that. You literally can't scroll through any social media and not see that. And I think that spikes your adrenaline, your fight or flight. And if you're in that mode all the time, you can't actually rest and recover. So you might go to sleep and be in bed 8 hours. I don't know when that's happened. I don't do any of that. But you might rest and be in bed for 8 hours and wake up and you're just kind of in that brain fog. You've just not actually recovered. And I think a lot of that is just your adrenal system. You are constantly fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight. Mm-hmm. So when you have the ability to actually have some peace, you have the ability to recover and actually operate at a little bit higher level. And I think that's a lot of that is on purpose. I think a lot of that is programmed. And I think that's what's behind a lot of the poisons that are in the food. And you have this idea that, well, I'll just eat healthier. And you don't realize that everything in the grocery store is poison. There is nothing in the grocery store that is of benefit to you other than you can go and eat a bunch of it and feel like you're not hungry. But nutritionally, it's not there. You have to seek that out on your own also.
That's fair. I'm going to tell everybody what I did. Well, one of the things we're doing, I mean, we've built this. I talk about the daycare extensively.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in the midst of, we had planned getting these renovations done by the middle of March. And my plan now is to be done by the middle of December. So I would really like, I don't know, it's going to be really close if I have them done by the time I come to your Christmas party. Now that also means afterwards. So for anybody who doesn't know, we're building this little mini daycare empire up here in Canada. And we decided that 100 kids in one location wasn't enough. So we're going to double it to go to 200. And what that required was taking 22 small offices on the second floor and turning them into 7 large classrooms. And so my son-in-law and I have been tearing everything apart for the last 4 weeks or so, 5 weeks. And just in the last 3 days, we've started drywalling, and all it is just fixing where we took a little 4-inch wall divider out. So we need to fix that. And as soon as that's done, we're ready to paint. And as soon as the painting's done, we're ready to hang decorations and shelves. And we've already brought ourselves to a point in life where financially we're pretty independent and we're living the life we want to live. After this one, we're set, man. Like things are really, really good. And so that if anybody thinks, because you guys got to know, and I've told John this story a bunch, but it literally started with me picking up dog shit. I would go out and just with a bucket and a little pooper scooper. And we started the handyman business and then into property management. And now we're into this daycare empire, man. And we're looking at other businesses that we might like to buy. I've been talking to her quite a bit lately about maybe a car wash or a laundromat, in one of the cities, because they're fairly hands off. And if you can find one good person, you're all set. So yeah, guys, get out there and do something to make your life better. I'm telling you, every single time, you'll never regret it.
Couple things with that. I see videos all the time to make $2 million a year picking up dog poop. And then they talk about how they did it and how they, grew that empire. As far as car washes and laundromats and vending machines, man, a lot of that is still cash money. A lot of that is still change. And what happens with that happens with that, so those are all very good. Guys here in town making car washes. I've been in the office, and there are hundreds of 5-gallon buckets full of quarters, and there are stacks of $1 bills. So what happens with that? Who knows, man? But you can buy a lot of stuff, with that money.
When I think about those quarters, I think about the silver that I could find in those, even now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even if like 1% of 1%, I don't even know what it would be. 1 in 1,000 coins has some silver content in it. How great would that be? So I'm going to tell another little story here. My YouTube channel just hit 20,000. When I was talking to you the other day there, John, and I said there was a good chance that I would hit 25,000 by my 5-year anniversary. And I'm totally going to do it. But a few years ago, when I first started becoming a content creator, I told Becky, I said, at some point, if you're cool with me being a 40-year-old YouTuber, I'm not going to do it for nothing. We're going to make money off it. And I tell everybody, you can make money and you can help people. They're not mutually exclusive. You're allowed to do both. And I said, at some point, my YouTube money will buy you a house. And she said, okay, that's the deal. Well, we're going out, actually, what's today? Tuesday, tomorrow, to look at an acreage. And it's an acreage that a few years ago would have been completely out of our price range. And now the monthly payment on that acreage is way less than my monthly income from YouTube. Yep. So if you're wondering if you can do that as well today, it hasn't all been done. You can.
You just broke 20,000. I don't even know where I am. Last I looked, it was 120,000. And you probably make 10 times more on YouTube than I make having 5 times more audience. It's crazy. You just did it right.
Yes. I always, if anybody wants to know where to start, I always say the stupid old spaghetti method. That's my favorite thing, is throw a bunch of things at the wall. And if you want to go back and look at the shit that I did, I mean, I was putting out 5 videos a week, and I discovered that 1 video a week was more effective than 5 in some ways. But it's the same as building a business. So whatever you do, you start and you try all the things. And then you find the 5 things or whatever they happen to be that make you the most money. And so you concentrate on those 5. And then out of those 5, you might realize these 2 take a lot of work, but these 2 make a lot of money. So you go to those 2, those 3, and then you just keep building it. And it doesn't happen overnight. Like January 24th of this year will be 5 years since I launched my YouTube channel. I did it on Nicole Sauce's podcast. I had 2 shows. I started out with how to start a handyman business with little or no money. A great idea, but it definitely wasn't something that was going to make me rich, because at the time it wasn't the right niche. And guess where I'm at now? Somewhere between prepping and generator videos. And yet it was a natural progression for the channel, because I paid attention to both what I'm passionate about. Well, 3 things: what I'm passionate about, what makes me money, and what my audience responds to. And if you keep doing that over and over and over again, eventually it's going to compound. Every single morning I wake up and I have a really good relationship with a certain supplier that I deal with, somebody whom I get a really good commission from. At this point, there's not a weekday that I don't wake up that there's not an email sitting there with $100, $200, $700 worth of commissions now. That didn't happen overnight. When I first started with Amazon affiliates, I got kicked out because I didn't get 3 sales in the first 90 days. So that makes anybody feel better.
Man, Amazon's down below 1%. We were making a couple thousand off Amazon, and a lot of months we're just a few hundred now off Amazon. And our sales are higher. We have more click through, but they're just the payout, man.
So what is your return? Why do you do all of the content that you do? Because you do a lot. And what is because you have a different business model, of course, than I do. And, you know, for me, it's, I make videos, I get ad dollars, I get commissions, that sort of thing. Yours is a little different. Why do you make all the content that you make, John?
I don't know why we did it to start with. People just liked it, and it was just us interacting with them, right? Guys that were into what we were into, especially like the homesteading stuff. The Pulling the Thread podcast originally was just me and Jeff standing in a closet talking conspiracy theory, and we did it because we liked it. And then we tried to figure out how to monetize it. But my biggest mistake with the channel is my channel's about 100 different things. We would make a lot more money if we broke it into 5 separate channels, and that content went there and that went there. And I've just kind of always been like, well, we're just going to do what I want to do, which was really dumb. If you're trying to do it as a business, we would have a lot more money had we done it, separately. But I don't want to have to do something on a schedule. I don't have any schedule. Usually most days I don't even know what the day is. I'm here on this video because you populated the video. You told me 3 days ago, hey, here is the video. Yesterday, you're like, hey, we have a video today. That's how I'm here. Otherwise, I would be doing whatever it is that I'm doing. And that's kind of always been my thing. Do what I want to do. And I've done it long enough that I don't have to do stuff I don't want to do anymore.
I love that vision of freedom. When I go, my girls play volleyball, and I sit down to chat with parents, and sometimes I think they don't know what to talk to us about, because for me, I can look at them and be like, how's work going? Right. And they see us, and, they'll be like, oh, where'd you travel to this month? And where did you go that month? Becky was in Tennessee one day, and 2 days later she was in Spain. And that blows people's minds a little bit. And, I can get up today, and I could, if I wanted to, I could drive to Montana and go drop off all my patches and come back. Or I could go to the Edmonton Oilers game, or I can go up and I can work for 10 or 12 hours on drywall. I can pick what I want to do. I try to have a loose schedule, but I never once get up anymore and think, oh, I got to go deal with that boss, or, oh my God, I don't want to have to go into work today, because I get to choose what I want to do. It doesn't mean I do nothing, but my God, if that's not the definition of freedom, John.
You are going to be the sum of the people that you spend the most time with. And that can be on the internet. It can be in person. And I've come to the realization that as a business owner, you have to be friends with business owners, because when you are friends with somebody who is not a business owner, those people are slaves. And I know they hate hearing that. Evan says the paycheck plantation. That's Radio Made Easy as Evan. And that's very, very much what it is. You hear that all the time, man. Money's not everything. Well, if money's not everything, how come you get up at a time you don't want to get up and go to a place you don't want to go to and do something you don't want to do all day long? And then you have a very finite amount of money for that, right? Whereas as a business owner, you get paid for the time you put into that. You want to make more money? You work more, or you hire more people, or you move your chess pieces around. And people, when you talk to them, And people, people grumble all the time, and you're like, well, those are choices, man. Do something different. Or, I can't do this because of money. Well, make more money. Well, they don't understand that. They cannot have that conversation. Those are two very different animals.
And once you become woke, whatever you want to call it, once I don't believe, now I'm saying if I ever had to, I suppose I could, but I think I would just start another business. If everything ever fell apart, there's no way I could go back to working for someone else.
No.
Because once you've got to this point, you might be able to do it for a year or so, if you've been your own boss for maybe 6 months to a year, but once you've lived in that routine for a few years and you realize that that is what life is truly supposed to be, I don't think you can go back. I couldn't go back. I don't believe. Man,
I went to prison for 2 years, federal prison, came home and had to have a job to get out of the halfway house, right? I was basically custody for about 4 months to the halfway house still, which means to leave the halfway house, you can go to a job or look for a job. And the first week I was home, I got 3 jobs delivering pizza and working in pizza places, working 80 hours a week. And I told the first guy I had no documentation, no driver's license, no insurance, nothing. Walked in, couldn't even prove who I was. Said, look, you're going to give me a job. I'm going to be the best employee you've ever had for 6 months. And then I'm going to leave after 6 months. And you're going to spend the next 2 years going, man, I wish I had John here still. And they said, you have my attention. And I said, I've run pizza places. I've been a manager at a pizza place. I do delivery. I know the whole area. I'm going to come in here as a delivery driver. You're going to give me till Wednesday. I think this was like on a Wednesday or a Thursday. You're going to give me to next Wednesday to have my proof and documentation. And if I can't produce it, you don't have to give me a check because you don't have my social security number. And I've worked for free for you guys for about a week. And I got all my paperwork and all my stuff and did that. Now, while doing that 80 hours a week, I relaunched my company in my mom's garage. About 3 weeks into this whole thing, I was able to go stay evenings at my mom's house. And starting the company from zero with no backing and no money whatsoever, I did $960,000 that first 12 months I was home. And the first 6 months of that, I spent 80 hours working part-time jobs in addition to that. I am not a good employee, not at all. I made almost $1 million versus making, under $2,000. So I cannot, it was all I could do to show up at those jobs and do that work, but I had to. It was either that or sit on a bunk and do absolutely zero. I didn't have a laptop. Cell phones were, just kind of a thing. There was texting. There was no internet, no smartphone. I literally had to have access to that computer at my mom's house.
So, again, I get this every so often. You must be nice. And, that's been my mantra over the years, or must be nice or you don't understand, because you've lived in your own entrepreneurship bubble for the last, in my case, 5 years, for your case, 20 years or more. So even though that stupid mindset's out there, if you were John Willis today, that just come out of jail or just lost their job or their home was destroyed or whatever it was, and you needed to be like, the Secret Boss TV show where they rebuild from nothing, what would you do today if you could?
Whatever it takes. Literally, whatever it takes.
Yep.
I would steal garden hoses off of people's porches and statues and houseplants and sell them 5 towns over. I would hold a sign and beg for money. I would be all over Marketplace looking for free stuff. I'd be on Craigslist. I'd be wherever I was looking for stuff, and I'd be picking up scrap metal and recycling that. I would be digging through people's trash in rich neighborhoods and reselling that stuff. Literally, whatever it takes, man. Anything that makes money. And when I find the thing that makes more money, I'll do more of that and less of the other. Literally, that's the answer. The answer is not, there's not one answer. The answer is whatever it takes.
I love it. And you're not wrong 100%, because here's my big thing into entrepreneurship is if you choose to do it, the only time you fail is when you give up. You get, and I know like people, oh, Tim, quit with the goddamn pat answers, but it's true. Because if something's not working, you tilt, you react, you try something different. That's it. The only people that have failed in something are the people that have given up at it.
You just
now,
have to
that doesn't mean you don't cut something off. Sorry, John. It doesn't mean you cut something off that's not working, but the only time you fail is when you completely give up.
You have to cut off access. You have to keep low performance people at arm's length, and you have to be around better performing people. When you get in that crowd, you hear all the time, like, I would never have a Rolex because it keeps terrible time. People that own Rolexes don't keep a Rolex to look at the time. I don't even look at a watch. I look at this. Even though I'm wearing a watch, I pull this out to see what time it is. The Rolex is admittance to the club. That tells the other guys that you have done what it takes to get that thing. And then occasionally there's a dude with a fake one, or, you know, a stolen one or whatever, but it gets you access to those other guys. And typically those dudes, you couldn't even go buy a Submariner. Like, people have no idea, right? If you go to buy a Sea Dweller or deep sea Submariner, you walk into the Rolex store, they're going to laugh at you. It doesn't matter if you had stacks of $100 bills. You can't get it. It's not there for you. You have, it's only there for customers who have already purchased them. It's like buying a Porsche GT3 RS. You can't go get one. You have to have already been an owner and be, those are allocation cars. But when you have those types of friends, every big deal I had that's over $100,000, it's because I was in the room with the dude. Usually the other guy's drunk. We were at a party at Soldier of Fortune at a SHOT Show years ago, and we did not belong there at all. It was the top of the thing, and there's a swimming pool under the floor, and they had filmed all the MTV Real World and stuff in there. And drunk dude. And I was there with some guys that had just come back from Afghanistan when we were only supposed to be in Iraq. And they said, this is the guy that makes all the equipment you were asking about, sir. And he said, you made those slings? And I said, yes, sir, I made the slings. He goes, we'll take 100,000 of them. I'm like, roger that, sir. And when we walked out, Mike said, how are we going to build 100,000 slings? I said, we're not. He was drunk. We're not ever going to hear from that dude. Monday morning, that fax machine started running, and it was a contract. It was a urgent need statement for 100,000 slings. And we built them 5,000 at a time. But that only happened because I was in the room at the time. We have a customer. He's a prince in Saudi Arabia. I had bought a watch in Las Vegas and did a video in there, filmed it buying the watch. It's my second highest view count ever, still to this day, is that video. And this guy hit me up in the comments and he said, hey, my friend, I collect Hublot watches. I would like to buy this. What is it? And I said, well, this is what it is. Good luck getting one. I was told this is the last one in the company. If anybody can get it for you, my friend Robert at the store can do it. So I put them in contact. He came back and said, thank you, my friend. I have one. It's coming DHL from Switzerland. I'll have it tomorrow. Next day, he sent me a photo. Said, I want to send you a gift. I said, here's my address. And 2 little wooden crates show up. And he sent these watches. That dude, I didn't even know it until Scully got in and started doing some shipping. He said, hey, do you know who this is? I said, I'm not sure who it is, but it's Saudi Arabia. I have a feeling who it is. That dude was ordering 20 grand a month from us, and he has ordered over $100,000. We would get these requests saying, hey, we want all this stuff. And I'm like, that's 120 grand. No problem. And they just wire transfer. That only happened because of those friends, those relationships you have. And that's the thing. The biggest deals, it's not because you earned it. It's because of what your opportunity and your access was. Every time we had a guy come in that owned a company called Prana, and they did like climbing clothes. Ron Koch did the stunt double for Cliffhanger. Yes. And he walked in with that dude. And my buddy Dwayne was a big climber, and he knew exactly who that dude was. And he said, hey, we want to buy, I don't remember what bag it was they bought. He's like, I want 120 of these. I want to give them as gifts to my employees. So he bought these things, and then he had given them, and they went to different places. And because of that relationship, another dude came in and ended up buying thousands of those bags off of that. It's never the advertising or anything that does it. It's always that relationship. And if you don't have people that can put you in those positions, and you yourself be able to put people into those positions also, maybe you need different friends, or, you know, you have to qualify what you call a friend. So frequently people are like, my friend, my friend, my friend. I'm like, when's the last time you were in the same room with your friend? When's the last time you even saw your friend, right? Have you conspired together? That means to breathe together. Have you been and occupied the same space? And most of them haven't ever even met their friends. They don't even know that girl they're talking to is even really a female.
So two thoughts on that. One, when we first got into starting our own business, we met a couple that I worked for, and they were in, he collected guns and he was into precious metals, and they kind of, I wouldn't say they took us under their wing, but for whatever reason, they enjoyed our company. And so we in turn enjoyed their company as well. And we kind of, we grew with them. Here's the thing. We kept going. They stayed where they were. We're not really friends anymore. Not for lack, we've moved beyond now. And if people say, well, how do I get access? Let me tell you a little bit about how you get access. You work on it, right? You absolutely. I wanted to get to know you, John. I didn't know you from Adam a couple of years ago. And so I just, I believe it was maybe Nicole who made the introduction to begin with, but you don't, just because you show up and have a conversation with John Willis, you don't get to do a monthly live with John Willis simply because you get introduced with him. You have to bring value, and you have to show that if John offers advice or anybody offers advice, you take that advice and you can build the life you want to live with it. And then my wonderful wife, who's right here, she just put up, I just wanted to let John know that the post he made about people eating or starving with you really made a lot of sense, and let him know that I need to pick his brain sometime.
Yeah. Don't eat with people that you won't starve with.
I love that. And what does that mean, John?
Well, it means exactly that. If you're going to sit around and spend time with people when times are good, they better be of value and pick you up, and vice versa when times are hard. Will they be there when times are hard, or are they only there in the good times? That's what that means. So you keep those circles very tight and very small.
So you ask, how do you get to know people? How do you make these connections? For me, it was literally driving 3,000 kilometers to Tennessee and talking to John, and then saying, hey, John, I think we should do a recording together. And John, yeah, sure. And then we did one, and I make the time. I get there. I make the, if you want something, folks, you've got to make it work. If I want to do this Monday morning live with John, I put together the live stream. I send it just like he said. But guys, this is what you do if you want. And it's not about using, it's about gaining from each other. It's about a mutual benefit. And that's truly what relationships and life should be about in business. Because if you don't bring anything to the table, why should anybody want to help you? Simple as that.
I met you the first time at one of Nicole's events, on her property. And I talked to 5 or 6 people. There was a group of mostly men sitting around at that time. And they asked, hey, what do you think? And I said, this is what I would do. This is how to do it. And then immediately, almost all those guys who ask those questions start telling you why they can't do it. You've lost me right there. Like, we're done. I'll entertain you and maybe tell you you're full of shit or whatever. But you asked a few things, or I even took it upon myself to tell you, hey, you should probably do this, this, and this. And there was evidence that you did those things. Maybe it wasn't what I told you to do or how I told you I would have done it, but you were successfully growing and progressing. Whereas most of those other dudes, I still see some of them at events and stuff. None of those dudes are doing shit. And you are. And that's the difference. You seem genuinely, you asked a question and you acted like what I was giving you back was important. And that's a lot of the difference, man. It was just genuine. It was real.
And I talked to my daughter, Charlotte, quite a bit about that. And I said, here's the thing. I've never met somebody that I wasn't genuinely interested in when I met them. And I mean that in a sense, because you can learn something from everybody, but pretty quickly, you're going to also know that what you learn from somebody has value or not as well, and whether they're willing to do something above and beyond that. And that's where I end up. Because people are interesting, but again, and I think I've learned from you, John, I will offer help to just about anybody who reaches out. But I know I'm thinking of one person in particular who has messaged me 3 or 4 times over the years. What's my next step for podcast? What's my next step for YouTube? And I give them, and I don't even respond anymore because they never did it. Not even once.
Yeah. Yeah. When you started a YouTube channel and you're still got 100 followers, like, make a decent, but like, guys are always constantly hitting us up. They're like, hey, send me some gear and I'll test it. I'm like, awesome. Like, we need our stuff tested, right? How about you buy something make a badass video. And if it's good, I will share your video, right? Me sending you some gear to show your audience of 1,000 people does nothing for my company. But if you get a piece of gear and you do a good video and I share it, I'm going to double or triple your audience in one afternoon. And they just, and people can't grasp that, man. If you ask me a question and I give you, like when I speak to you, see me and just talking very one-on-one or one-on-two, those people I'm speaking to at that time are the most important things in the world to me while I'm having that conversation. And I give them very genuine, actionable information. 99% of them do nothing with it, right? So if I have given or mentored or helped accelerate 100 people, right? And I've given the same exact information, let's say 100 people ask me the same thing, and I give them the answer, but only one person executes. That means I only have a 1% success rate, right? So I have to qualify where my time is spent.
But I love seeing though, I get that. So when you go to events and things, so that was, to wrap it all around, because today, guys, just so you know, I have to close her up in about 5 minutes here because I have to take Becky for surgery. Normally we would go longer, but just
Becky is okay, guys. She is okay.
Carpal tunnel. Sorry. Yeah, that's so true. I make it sound like it's this big friggin' deal. The problem is it's a 3-hour drive away. So yeah, anyway, but oh yeah. So talking about why we make content, and I took a 2-month hiatus from my podcast, rearranged the YouTube channel, worked my ass off on getting the daycare renovations, and came down to SRF. And I realized why I do the podcast. And this is where, for somebody who says, you need a return on investment, yes, there's a return on investment, but there's also the intangibles. And when I was at Delinquent's Gully, which is our off-grid property, and 23 or 26 people showed up to work 1, 2, or 3 days, I realized that's why I do the other content. That's why I put out the podcast. That's why I help people build the life they want to live, because they've helped me do that too. And it's incredible. And like you say, 1 out of 100, but say 10,000 people in your lifetime reach out to you for help, John. What would that be? 100 people or 1,000 people that you've,
yeah.
Right. So hell yeah, that's why we do it, man.
Yeah, I want to.
So when you got coming up this week, John?
Inside work, man. Just work on SOE. We got a bunch of new product. We've got some new patterns we're putting out. We've got the party coming up, and we have to have the VIP items for the party worked out, and then we have to have the gift bags and stuff like that. So while we're running all of our normal stuff, we also have to run all that other stuff, and it all has to happen simultaneously. And then we've got some new people, so we've got to get them up to speed. And every time we throw somebody new in the works, it, puts a wrench in the in production. So just making sure everything's smooth. Well,
I'm excited about the party. We have to fly in. We're getting a direct flight because we don't put up with connecting flights anymore. So we're flying into Atlanta of all places, which is a bit of a drive, but I don't care. So we're coming in, I think, for 6 days. So we'll be there for the 2 days for the party, and then a day or two on either end. Got to figure out what we're going to do. If you got time, I'd love to record something in person again, which
of course we have time. Anyway. Yeah, we always.
I know we do. We always have time, but I can't wait to see you. I'm stoked. And for us, what are we doing? Just building the life we want to live, finishing the renovations, and just doing the shit, man, making the money, and also going to look at an acreage tomorrow, which I'm stoked about.
Yeah, I'm stoked for you, man. Those are the real friends, man. Those are the real friends. Like, I am a horrible friend, and then I'm not coming to your house. If I haven't spent time with somebody in the last year, I'm not coming to your wedding, I'm not coming to your funeral, and I'm not coming to your holidays. And chances are I'm not coming to your wedding or funeral anyways. So I am very lucky that it is important enough for people to come here. And my closest friends, many of them, don't live anywhere near me. Like, I couldn't go see them the same day if I had to, So I'm very lucky that you are coming, and I appreciate you and thank you for coming down, man. I know there's multiple reasons, and I know it'll benefit you as well. And I love that you will come to an event that we're doing and walk away with as much or more than you brought to it.
100%. Well, thank you, guys. I would love to keep going. You know we would, but today we got to call her quits. So what a month from now, what is this? The final Monday of the month. So I think that's what we're going to shoot for next month, John, if you're good with that.
Awesome.
Take care, folks. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great